I hope you're ready for some more spoilers for the Lost Caverns of Ixalan that's coming up in like 2 weeks, I think, because this new batch of cards has really showcased some incredibly powerful things that I think will actually shake up the metagame. I'm starting to believe that we might actually have some new artifacts, some not artifacts, archetypes coming into play in the next standard format that look to be powerful enough, for sure, to match up to what we currently have at center. I think the artifact deck is going to be good. I think the Dino deck has a chance to work as well. And I don't know. I'm iffy on Explore. Explore is like where I'm kind of about. But just those two alone is already good. And I think the shakeup is going to come in as well, where we have probably the control decks going out of favor, where counter magic is way less powerful, if not just completely irrelevant, depending on the decks that can utilize that land that gives all spells on all your creature spells uncounterable. So yeah, we'll see about that. But let's jump into things with the Zoetic Glyph. Now, this card is absolutely insane. This was the last card I checked out on stream today, and we're going to start off with it. So we have an enchantment aura, and when you consider the artifact deck, as we'll see in a second here, this enchants an artifact, and it becomes a 5/4 in addition to its other types. 5/4 Golem, artifact Golem with base power and toughness 5/4. And when this card is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you discover for 3. And discover is a mechanic where you will exile the top card of your library until you exile a spell that costs 3 or less. Here in this case, because it's 3, and you cast that spell for free. So that is incredibly powerful to have a tempo spell that will upgrade one of your trash artifact tokens, or maybe literally anything, any artifact that you have. You can upscale something that's already a creature potentially, or just turn like a blood token into a 5/4 golem. And when they remove it, well, you discover for 3, so you gain more card advantage, tempo. Like, this card is bonkers. Like, this, it's insane the amount of tempo you get from this. Plus, having that card advantage tacked on top of it is absolutely ridiculous. And there's almost no counterplay to the discover ability on this card, because it's always going into the graveyard, because you're removing the usually you're going to remove the creature that's attached to this enchantment, unless you can interact with the enchantment directly, but with an exile, which is not that common. So this card is insane, essentially, is what I'm saying. This card alone convinced me that artifacts are going to be a thing, essentially. Actually, I take that back. This card also convinced me that artifacts was going to be a thing. I am not happy. I talked about this on stream. I just like the Zoetic Glyph, I think, is also not good. I am very much against 3 mana spells that can snowball the game too quickly, either in terms of card advantage or in terms of just board presence, which is why I'm not a huge fan of the Zoetic Glyph, because it's so powerful on offense, right? If you're on the play. The thing is, in this standard format, in Magic in general, I guess mostly for standard, when you're on the draw, that disadvantage gets larger and larger the more early game spells that can snowball the game in the format in general, right? So if you're on the draw and your opponent plays Rafine, Wedding Announcement before Fable, this card, and Zoetic Glyph now, you're so far behind. If you don't have the perfect answer for that situation, aka like maybe counterspell or something, or like for this card, a removal spell, you are falling so far behind that it's very difficult to recover. We don't have that many options to like stabilize a board state that easily. I mean, it's doable because you have the extra card, but it's like you're still at the mercy of the shuffler, right? It has to give you the right outs quickly, because otherwise you're going to keep losing ground, especially with this card and the Zoetic Glyph, which gives you automatic card advantage, right? The Glyph, when you kill the creature it's attached to, it's going to discover for 3, so you're losing on board presence even more potentially if it gets another like permanent spell. And this card here, let's talk about it, because I didn't even mention what it does, but you're going to see it's ridiculous. So 3 mana 1/5. 1/5 is insane stats for a defensive creature. It's incredible. Dodges cut down. And at the beginning of each player's end step, so your opponent's end step as well, if an artifact entered the battlefield under your control this turn, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand, 1 into the graveyard. So, yeah, you get to look at top 2 and draw a card. And put one of those cards in the graveyard, potentially activating Descended, which needs a permanent spell to go into your graveyard. So not only is it enabling the self-mill plan of Descended potentially, It's also fueling your graveyard potentially with artifacts that can be used to craft other cards, and you're drawing a card potentially twice every time your turn comes back around. One on your turn and one on your opponent's turn if you have flash artifacts. This card can gain ridiculous amount of card advantage. If it's not answered quickly, you will just get buried under card advantage. And it's not like the artifact deck does not have ways to pressure your life total, as you saw with the 5/4 golem. Really swinging it hard there, because your artifacts are going to have haste basically, because they'll be on the field before that card comes down for the most part. So I don't like this pattern that we're seeing of 3-mana spells being, you know, a little bit too scary, essentially forcing you to have that removal spell, because if you don't have it, you will probably be losing that game, because you're not going to be able to pressure this this player's life total, because a 1/5 literally blocks everything unless you have Glissa or something, Death Touch. But against mono red, this is an absolute wall. It's like, it is nuts. It's crazy. I don't have much else to say about it. I guess we'll see if the artifact deck is a thing. These two cards that I showed are going to be probably pivotal to that deck, and this card specifically is going to be a tough time. When you don't have the answer for this, you're going to feel really bad. I'm going to showcase the manlands since we're finishing off the cycle here. We have Restless Reef, which comes in tapped. It taps for blue or black, and for 4 mana, it becomes a 4/4 black-blue shark with Death Touch until end of turn, and it's still a land, and whenever it attacks, target player mills 4 cards, so totally fine. Like, giving it, like, this manland stats, 4/4 for 4 is good. So when you see a manland with this kind of stats, it is a good sign. So this is going to be a pretty good one. The mill is also nice for Descendant. Anyways, Akawali, the Seething Tower. Now, this card is interesting. This is part of the Descendant mechanic. Actually, I forgot to mention, I think Descendant is going to be another deck that we'll see play in this format. So we potentially have 3 new archetypes that are coming to Standard, and these cards are so powerful that I would assume, or some of these cards are so powerful that I would assume these archetypes are playable if they tested correctly. 3 mana. It is a 3/3, and as long as you have 4 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, it gains +2. It has +2/+2 and has trample, so it becomes a 5/5 with trample. And if you have 8, it has +2/+2 again, making it a 7/7, and it can only be blocked by can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. So you're gonna have a really hard time trading this thing as a 7/7, and it has trample. So yeah, that's a really, really solid payoff for going into like a kind of self-mill game plan with Descend and Descended. This thing hits very hard on turn 4, because you're most likely going to have the 5/5 when you untap and you cast another card that can mill yourself on turn 4. So then again, it is just a card that dies to any removal spell. But I think the self-mill deck has enough threats where even if it's dies to removal, your other creatures will probably not die to removal, hopefully. So there's that. Sunfall's all a bit scary. I don't know. The Descended deck is probably the deck that I'm the least convinced about, just because you can graveyard hate it out, and we have a lot of exile. So that exile is not contributing to your opponent's graveyard. So this is probably the deck that I'm a little bit iffy on, but I still think probably could see play. But we'll have to see. Subterranean Schooner, or however you pronounce that, I'm not sure. It's a 3/4 vehicle for 2 mana in blue, crew 1, which is insane. This will probably see play in the artifact deck. It is overstated, very overstated, and whenever it attacks, target creature that crewed it this turn explores. That is good. So not only do you have an overstated creature, that can, an overstated vehicle that will become a creature, crew 1 is super easy, extremely easy, and it has the additional effect of potentially drawing you land or turning your creature into a creature that has +1/+1 counter on it. So a good vehicle with good stats with upside, and it's an artifact, obviously. Looks good to me. Braided Net is another artifact. I mean, you'll see the trend here. A lot of new blue artifacts in this reveal here that really are convincing me that this is probably something. Now, this card I'm not sure about, but I just want to showcase it because it's kind of cool. Now, enters the battlefield with 3 net counters on it. Remove a net counter by tapping it, and you tap target non-land permanent, and its activated abilities can't be activated for as long as it remains tapped. So you can tap a Planeswalker, can't activate its abilities. You can tap an enchantment, can't activate, etc., etc. You can tap anything. So that's good. And then 2 mana to craft it. So to craft, you exile an artifact from your graveyard or from your battlefield, and you transform it into an artifact that you can pay 4 and tap to draw a card for each artifact you control, then put this card back into owner's library, third from the top. So you're going to redraw that spell eventually and have even more tap effects, buying you even more time. It's pretty good. In an artifact deck, you're going to be drawing a ton of cards with this, refilling your hand, and then you can draw it again. That is pretty good, I think. I'm not sure if we'll see play, but the card is very powerful, so would not be surprised. We have another really good artifact here. All these transform artifacts seem to be really good. This one is 3 mana, enters the battlefield, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards +1. So it's replacing itself. Very good. And at the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, put a boar counter on this card. And if there are 3 or more boar counters on it, remove those counters and transform. And when you transform, you have a land that taps for red. And whenever you cast a permanent spell using mana produced by this land, you discover X, where X is that spell's mana value. So incredible amounts of card advantage attached to this, and it ramps you because it's adding that mana. And discover is ridiculously mana efficient, where if you're casting remote anything, even cheap spells, but the higher cost, obviously the higher potential upside, casting spells for free from your deck if you're a proactive deck is absolutely ridiculous. And this is an effect that is just static. It's something that will always be there for you once per turn at least. If you can't untap the land, it's once per turn. That is nuts. This card can get out of hand quickly. I think it's a little bit slow, but there are ways around this. You can play a lot of sweepers maybe, or like there's probably enough ways to stabilize. I'm not sure which color combo you'd play this in, but I think the card's powerful enough to see play. So that's my take on this card. We have the legendary creature for the explore mechanic, which is going to be a 2/3 for 2, which is good. And whenever a creature you control explores a land, you put that land onto the battlefield, so it helps you ramp. That's really good. And whenever a creature you control explores a non-land card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So it has self-scaling with the explore mechanic, and that's quite good when you consider that this can ramp you, which is really strong, and also can scale itself up. Now, dice to cut down, that's not great, but I still wanted to showcase this because I think it's going to be kind of a guaranteed card you're going to put into the Explorer deck, I would guess, if that Explorer deck is a thing. Now, that's also a mechanic that I'm not sure is going to see play in the standard. So it does seem a little bit weak. Like, Explorer is not a mechanic that snowballs you that hard. It really depends. But another, supporting card for Explorer that might give it some hope here is Twists and Turns, which is insane. 1 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control would explore, you scry 1, then you explore, which is insane card selection. Like, that's really, really good. You can guarantee the land or guarantee the creature, and or the permanent, to get +1/+1. When it enters the battlefield, target creature you control explores. So if you don't play it on turn 1, you'll have a creature, and that means it has an ETB effect, which is good. It gives this card upside, whereas if you top deck it in the late game, it would feel pretty bad. Now it feels a little bit less bad. It's not great, but it's not bad at all. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, you transform this into a land that you can pay 4 and tap it, look at top 4 of your library, reveal a creature, and put that card into your hand. So it basically infinite card advantage in the late game. Like this is a pretty good. This is a pretty good card. So you have early game card selection, and late game card advantage. So 1 mana spell that will give you immense amounts of value over the course of the game. If you're going for that long game, with Explorer you probably are. The other manland is Rakdos, and Rakdos gets a 2/3 for 3, and it has menace. When it attacks, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. So pretty good card. It's really good in any. It's really good again in any deck really because it has menace. So it's another good manland. We have the Blue God, which I think is actually pretty good. So you cast the Blue God. Now it could be bad if we have a lot of exile in the meta, which we do have right now, but you never know where the meta is going to end up exactly. So maybe we're moving away from exile. I doubt it, but I see that's copium. But I just want to show it off because it's a cool card. So you have a 4/3 for 4 flying. When you cast an instant spell from your hand, it gains rebound, and rebound means that you can exile it when you're casting it, and at the beginning of your next upkeep, you get to cast that spell for free. Again, So you get you double your spells basically, but it's on a delay a little bit. So it's good with removal spells, good with card draw, it's good with anything that doesn't really require targets. So I don't know. There's probably more cards I'm not thinking about. Maybe I don't know, maybe not. But yeah, this seems to have like pretty high upside. Now the downside is if it gets exiled, it just gets exiled. But I mean, is that really a downside? Everything gets exiled. So, but yeah, when it dies, you transform it, and you transform it into a land that taps for blue. And when it taps, oh yeah, it transforms with 3 time counters on it. So you tap for blue, you remove a time counter, and after you remove all 3 time counters, you can activate the ability where you pay 3, you tap it, and you transform back. I like the card. Risky against exile, but no ETB as well. Might not see play. Probably won't see play, but it's a cool card nonetheless. And lastly, the card that pretty much enables dinos probably by itself, I guess. I mean, obviously you need card advantage to keep up, but I think the dino deck is looking reasonable. You have a 1/1 Llanowar Elf that taps for dinosaur mana. Any color. That is very good. 1 mana, 1/1 tap for mana, any color. That's gonna see play in the dinosaur deck. Now, if that dinosaur deck is bad, this will see 0 play. But if the dinosaur deck is good, this will be a 4 of in every single one of those decks. So guess we can look forward to that or not, depending on if you're afraid that dinos will take over the meta. But I don't think they will. I mean, we'll see. We still have Sunfall, and dinos, they do have, some of them have haste, some of them don't. Most of them don't. So we'll see. Anyways, I'm going to leave you with that. That was the last card I have for you today. I will probably make one last video covering the rest of the cards. I think there's still some left. And yeah, that's going to do it for me. See you in the next one. If you enjoy my content and would like to help me keep making it, consider supporting me over on Patreon, where you'll get access to a bunch of bonus videos, as well as other rewards depending on the tiers. And thank you so much to all the lovely patrons that are already subscribed. I appreciate it very much. And I will see you all in the next video.